Well, hello, this is Jeff Gaudiosi, and you're on misplacedstraws.com where music comes to life. And my guest today is a founding member, guitarist, and writer for the band Haken, one of the premier progressive metal bands on the scene today. In 2023, they released their seventh record, Fauna, which was on nearly every list of the best prog records of the year. They're about to kick off a second North American tour behind that record, and here to talk about all of it is Richard Henshall. Welcome, Rich.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Good. And now, again, we saw those year end lists. Fauna was all over the place, winning all kinds of awards. Is there a sense of validation that something you put so much work and so much of yourself into gets recognized the way Fauna has been?
It's always an honor for us to get any positive feedback. With Fauna, like you say, we put a lot of effort and time into it. I feel like it took us maybe 2 years from the point we started writing to the point we got the finished master. So we put a lot of love and passion and energy into it. So you kind of, I don't know, you're waiting to hear back, and like you kind of lose perception by that point. You
Mm.
kind of lost the idea of, is this any good anymore? Because you've heard it so much, you've been writing it for a few years, then you've recorded it over the space of a few months, so you're kind of desensitized to it to a certain extent. So to hear positive feedback after all of that is always a great thing.
Mm.
Um, but primarily we're just writing music that we want to hear ourselves. It's always just a bonus really if other people want to listen to it as well. But luckily,
Mm.
there are some people out there that want to hear us play, and we get to travel around and play lots of shows around the world. So it's always a great honor for us.
And I think the thing that's always impressed me about your band is that you guys are always evolving. Each record is almost a completely different style. It has its own unique personality. Even when there's a connection, like with Vector and Virus, they're still very different. You're primarily responsible for the music. What is it that drives you to work these different styles each time?
I think it's generally a reflection of what we listen to as a band. We've got a very eclectic taste. I grew up listening to Michael Jackson and Queen, and then I got into hardcore metal bands, like Madball, and like some UK hardcore bands like Stamping Ground and Knuckle Dust. Metal bands like Soulfly, Sepultura, Metallica, and then on the flip side of that, we listen to a lot of like indie rock stuff,
Mhm.
like Bombay Bicycle Club, everything. And then you've got jazz as well in there, Tigran. If you imagine all of these influences are thrown into a pot, the end result is, I guess you could say, the music we come out with, the Haken sound. And then also our tastes are evolving as well
Mm.
over the years. Like back in the day during the Aquarius Visions era, um, I feel like those two albums were very influenced by kind of cinematic sounds.
Mm.
Um, but now our sound has evolved as our tastes are evolving. But yeah, it's not like we set out to say this album needs to be different from the last one. We just try and keep the whole process as organic as possible. And now that we're all writing together as a band, I feel like that's really broadened our sound a lot since some of the earlier albums. And now, because we're all writing, there's so much going on. Maybe a bit too much, who knows? But we enjoy it, so fun for us.
And as you were beginning the process of creating Fauna, original keyboardist Peter Jones came back into the fold after about a decade or so. And while it's never easy to integrate a new personality into the band, does it make it easier that you guys had such a long relationship with Peter?
Yeah, Pete's a great guy. He was on the demos way back in the day, around about 2007 and 8. We kind of released those. I say release, we actually just burnt them onto a disc and just handed them out to people at shows. That was way back, and we kept in contact. He went off to study theoretical physics, and we wished him well on his journey, and we stayed in contact, and we were still great friends. Pete and I also played in another band called the Nova Collective, which is more of a jazz fusion instrumental project. So also musically, we stayed in contact. So when we parted ways with Diego, we, he was a natural fit, like socially and also musically. He's got very similar taste to us, but he also brought a new sound to the mix. He's very into his electronic stuff. He has a project called Nested Shapes, which is kind of like evolving ideas. So you'll have one core idea in a song, and it just evolves throughout the whole song, which is a really cool concept to bring to the Haken sound. Because with Haken, there's lots of different ideas going on at the same time, but sometimes it's good to focus on one singular thing and let it grow a bit. So we tried to do that a bit on Fauna, and he has a jazz influence as well, which he's brought to the table. But aside from all of that, it's just been great reconnecting with him, touring, just hanging out on the tour bus, and all of that stuff, which is a major part of being in a band. But yeah, it's been great. Looking forward to getting cracking on a new album with him.
And now, you guys did a US tour last year when Fauna was released. What can fans expect this time around? What's going to be different this time than the set you guys played last time?
It's always a pleasure coming over there. We have some of our best tours in the US, and we get to eat lots of cool food as well, which is always a pleasure. But yeah, so we try and mix it up. If we're going to do 2 tours in one area for an album, we try and mix it up. And this time, we thought it'd be cool to do an evening with type setup, which we've never done before. And they're kind of regretting it now because it's 3 hours of music. So we've been preparing like crazy for the last 3 or 4 months, just every day going through the songs, making sure our muscle memory is fully kind of processed. So what we're doing is we're playing the whole of Fauna for the first set, and then maybe another song at the end there to finish off that set. And then we're going to play a bunch of our fan favorite songs in the second set. So it's kind of like almost a best of Haken in the second set. But yeah, 3 hours of music, and it's just going to be us, and it'll be a seated show, so fans aren't going to lose their position if they want to go to the toilet or go to the bar. So yeah, it'd be a new experience for us. We've never done a whole tour where everyone's sitting down and really focusing on what we're playing, because that's going to be an interesting experience for us. And maybe it'll be more enjoyable for the fans because they can just sit and just watch what's going on rather than kind of get tired legs by the end of the night. But yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. We're all around America and Canada as well.
Yep. And now, playing all of Fauna, is there a specific track that maybe you guys haven't played live yet that as you're going through rehearsals, you're really looking forward to playing and seeing the crowd reaction?
Yeah, we've done a bunch of them already, maybe just over half the tracks over the last year or so. We did the singles, then we did Elephants Never Forget, which has been a really fun one to play. Probably the most quirky song on the album. You can see that gets like a real cool reaction from the crowd. So that one will be fun. For me, a personal song would be Eyes of Ebony, because I wrote the lyrics about my father, and it's a very personal song for me. So that one will be a really special one to play live. I'm looking forward to seeing that, and that's the song that closes the album, and it has this big emotional kind of climax at the end. So that'd be quite epic to play live. Aside from that, the other ones we haven't. Oh yeah, Beneath the White Rainbow. That it's kind of crazy. It kind of feels to me like the love child of Korn and Tigran Hamasyan. It's got kind of jazz influences in there, but then it's also got this really heavy, low guitar stuff going on. That should be fun to play. There's some really tricky rhythmic sections in that, which will be fun to try and pull off live. And a few shouty moments for Ross, which will be fun as well. So we'll see how that one goes. But yeah, playing the whole album in its entirety, it's going to be fun. That's essentially how you kind of write music a lot of the time, or we do at least, is you want it to be performed as one long piece of music, which is quite typical, I guess, in prog genre. A lot of the time it's like it, rather than a collection of single songs, it's just this big long piece of music with returning themes. So yeah, it'll be fun to see how that goes down.
Mm. You guys have spent, by the time this is done, you'll be on the road almost a full year. Are you able to write as you guys are touring, or would you rather finish that cycle and then go and begin writing the next project? How do you usually work?
A lot of the time we'll work individually, and then we will maybe one of us will pen down an idea, just a
Mm,
core seed of an idea, and then we'll send it to the other guys, and then that next person will develop that idea and then send it back, and then someone might say, "Well, that sounds cool. Maybe we could try this here."
mm,
They'll take the project and work on it. But more and more so over the years, we've started to collaborate together in small groups. A lot of us live in London, so we'll meet and we'll just hang out and just see if we
mm,
can grow some ideas organically to see if it has a different feel at the end of it all. I found it feels more natural that way, and when you
mm,
come to playing it live, it kind of falls under the fingers more naturally.
mhm,
Because a lot of time when you're writing on your own, it could be quite calculated, and you're kind of programming parts, and you don't really have that back and forth emotional connection that you do when you're writing as a group. And we have tried to write on the tour bus before. We've kind of set out the back room of the
mm,
bus into a makeshift studio, which was pretty cool. And that experience was great because we were all there on the bus, so we can, be just hanging out, just sharing ideas. I think it was on the Devin Townsend tour. We were wrapping up the virus writing.
mm,
So we set out the whole back room as a studio, and we had a microphone in there, and we were just kind of passing the mic around, all sharing ideas for vocal lines, harmonies. And by the end of the tour, we had it all mapped out, and it was a lot quicker doing that than like bouncing ideas back and forth online, because sometimes someone might be busy for a couple of days, then you kind of lost the flow a bit. So we will try that on this tour because we've kind of penned down some initial ideas for the next album. It'll be the perfect time for us to be all together in one space because
mm.
we're all dotted around the world, so it's quite hard to pull that off a lot of the time.
Now, Haken's music in general, but I think specifically with Fauna, is very complex. You guys build a lot of layers sonically into everything you do. What's that like to recreate live? Do you need to use some of it on tracks just to fill the sound, or can you actually play all of those layers live?
It's definitely a tricky one because it's we always take a lot of inspiration from the likes of Gentle Giant and King Crimson, and I feel like especially Gentle Giant, they're like perfect at having like a multi-layered approach. And if you listen to each instrument, it doesn't necessarily sound that complicated, but it's all syncopated against like a steady beat. But every part is syncopated with each other, and then the whole tapestry of the sound is sounds a lot more complex than it actually is. So that's a big inspiration for us, and that's the way we try and approach the music a lot of the time. We'll have individual parts which aren't necessarily tricky, but together they sound a lot trickier than they are. So when it comes to doing a tour, we're all just pretty meticulous as like musicians anyway, pretty anal about things. We will just spend like months just learning our parts like exactly as we played it on the record. So hopefully when we get to the point we're about to start the tour, it should just lock into place. And luckily, because we've recorded the parts, we have all the stems at home, so we know exactly what we played. And so that's the plan. And a lot, because we're not really in the same city, most of us, we'll have to kind of meet and just rehearse before the tour for like a day, or even on the last tour, we rehearsed on the day of the first show. So we booked out the venue for the whole day, and we basically woke up at a stupid time and rehearsed on the stage for maybe 2 hours before the tour, and that was the only rehearsal we'd had of these new songs. It was a bit of a crazy thing to do, but we pulled it off because we'd all like planned ahead of time individually and got everything down. Um, so yeah, does that answer your question? I can't remember the second
Yeah,
part.
no, that's perfect.
Okay, I think I thought maybe there's another part of the question there.
Nope, that is perfect.
Okay.
And just before we end the interview, one thing that I've always wanted to talk to you about, if I ever had the opportunity to talk to you, back in 2017, you guys as a band backed Mike Portnoy and the Shattered Fortress shows, performing the 12 Step Suite. How did Haken as a band end up as Mike's band during that?
I mean, yeah, we felt the same at the time because it was such a big thing for us. I mean, as you can imagine, we've come from this world, this progressive metal world, which Dream Theater have essentially established. They're the ones that paved the way for all of these new bands to do their thing. We kind of grew up listening to Dream Theater, going to watch them in London. I saw them countless times at the Hammersmith Apollo, then at Wembley as well. And those gigs were such memorable nights for me, and they kind of really formed like the basis of me wanting to start Haken really with Ross and Matt back in the day. And so yeah, so when we got kind of a message from Mike saying he's really into Haken, really into music, like, would you guys be up for kind of doing this with me to celebrate his 50th birthday? And the first show was on Cruise to the Edge, which is a cruise ship essentially, which is a festival on a cruise ship, which was hosted essentially by Yes. And he's always there. So Mike's always on the boat, and he has his hand in choosing the bands that play on the boat. So he asked us if we could do this one-off show to celebrate his 50th birthday. And obviously we were like, yeah, of course, this is a great experience and a great opportunity for us to play with one of our heroes. And then from that, it kind of stemmed outwards onto like a world tour essentially. We did Australia, we played in South America, then we did Europe, and we did maybe New York, I feel, in the US, but only one show. So yeah, like getting on the stage with Mike and then playing the 12-step suite alongside a bunch of songs from Scenes from Memory, which is one of my personal favorite albums. It's an incredible piece of work. It was such a great experience. I just vividly remember the South America shows, especially just being in the room with such like fanatical people singing along, and like I was a fan. The rest of the guys on the stage were all huge fans as well of the music. So we just felt like we were one with the fans. It was a great experience, and yeah, we're always eternally grateful to Mike for that. And it's great to hear that he's back in the band.
Yes, yeah.
It's you know, I don't know. It's like for me, like those days from back in the day, it just felt right. I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing him back on the stage with Dream Theater and doing his thing. Yeah,
100%.
yeah, he's a great guy, and like we're very grateful for that experience he gave us.
Well, we've been spending some time here with Rich Henshall. The band is Haken. The record is called Fauna. The US tour starts February 10th. I'll actually be catching you guys and photographing the show on February 29th here in Connecticut. I'm really looking forward to it. I haven't had the pleasure of catching you guys live yet. So thank you so much. Best of luck on the tour, and we will see you on February 29th.
Nice one. Thank you so much for the interview, and see you on the 29th. Should be fun.
Thanks.